Today we're out here at Overton, Texas for the second time. What we're here for is there is a 5-foot diameter, approximately, red oak tree. Real unusual situation. Two huge trees growed together and a storm come through here and they have split. And both of them's on the ground. So we're going to see what we can salvage out of this tree, but it's an enormous tree. It's gonna take some special engineering to get this thing on the ground and get it loaded on my trailer. So let me give you a view of what we're looking at here and we'll proceed to see how we can solve the problem. That tree may not look big until you get close to it. And then you see that there's a point of reference. I have to stay there. I'm thinking it's 5 foot or more right there. As you can see, it just is split and rolled over in the ground. Here's the other half of this tree. Where it split off. This other tree is over 2 foot diameter. So it's no small thing itself. It's right at 2 feet diameter right here. And then it goes way out there and there's your Widowmaker. See, it's all off the ground, supported on limbs, ready to fall on somebody. So some special engineering there. A little more view of this thing. Here's where it split. Split off right there. And we're still looking at over 5 foot diameter right there. Up here at the first limbs, 20 feet up the tree, this thing is still over 3 feet diameter. It's over 3 foot diameter. I'll give you a better view of this. That's over 5 feet, and that's about 20 feet up the tree, and that tree is over 3 foot diameter right there. And then it starts branching off. And at least this one's trunk is mostly laying on the ground, except for a couple of Widowmakers there that's got to be taken care of. So we're gonna get started on this thing, see what we can do. "73 years old, still climbing trees." can hear it cracking. It seems to be cut all the way through. I think the stump is just holding it up there. So I'm gonna stop everything, take my trailer and winches around here, hook onto this stump and see if I can break it loose. I think all it needs is a little bit of effort on its pulling it, and it'll pop right loose here. So give me a minute to rig up. As you can see in this photo, I normally wear my remote microphone on my suspender strap right on the front of my chest. Notice in this video where I'm wrestling this cable over the stump. Apparently I knocked my microphone off. It fell straight down under this stump, and I didn't notice it for 15-20 minutes that I had lost it. I was so busy working. By then though, I had pulled this stump back in the hole and buried my microphone. Now let's try it again. Now the only way I knew, I searched the whole site looking for that microphone and couldn't find it. And only when I reviewed this video in detail did I realize that was the point. I had knocked it off right before I pulled that stump back. So, lost a microphone. It's under maybe 1,500 pounds of dirt and stump. So you'll have to excuse the audio for the rest of this video, because all the audio that I was able to record after that is what I picked up from a distance from a GoPro camera. It's also why there's so much voiceover on the last of this video, trying to explain what should have been picked up on a microphone. So we lost a microphone, gotta buy a new one. We'll do better next time. Try to keep up with the microphones. Now the question is, how wide and how big is this thing really? Looking at that stump, I've right on the button of 5 foot. Yes, 60 inches, 5 feet across. Give you another view of this thing, just how big it is. Feet across right there. Big tree. All right, we're going to start working a problem here. How much log can I carry on the trailer? I don't want to cut the log too long. It'll weigh so much that it'll blow out tires on the way home. So I've got to play with the weight and get a log that I can actually carry home and get there with. If that end is 5 foot long, and if this end right to here is 4 foot diameter, I said 5 foot diameter. If it's 5 foot diameter down there, 4 foot diameter here, this is 14 feet. If you go to an app that's log weight, you can put in the diameter and the log weight and the species, or the log length and the species, and it'll give you the weight. A 4 foot diameter log here, 14 feet long, is going to weigh 13,500 pounds. That's exceeding my trailer weight by a couple thousand pounds. I usually can get by with it. I would love to cut this log past this crotch, but that would add 5 foot to it. So I'm gonna say that's I'm gonna say 18 feet long. If I wanted to do it 18 feet long, look what the difference it makes. Now this log, if I just cut it right here, is 17,000 pounds of oak wood. So too much for my trailer, can't carry it. So I've got to come back here and cut that through here is all I could possibly carry, and then I'm fudging. So log weight chart on your phone, very handy for figuring this stuff out. Also, we got a nice little surprise here. Here's a burl. We're gonna cut that loose later on and see if there's something we can use for bowl turning out of that. Sometimes burl are unique, sometimes they're just rotten trash inside, so we don't know till we cut it loose. Something else I'm gonna be doing here, it's just one of the problems with this huge log. If I cut it back here, that end's gonna go on the ground. Even if I use the winches to roll it over to where I can start loading it up the trailer, that thing is going to be so far in the ground when it hits that the ramp on the trailer, instead of sliding up the ramp, it's going to be shoveling so much dirt, it's going to hit the end of the ramp. Try to push the ramp up instead of riding up the ramp. So to deal with that, I'm going to go over a chainsaw and I'm going to cut some, say, 6-inch limbs off and put them under here so that when I cut here and this falls, it never falls on the ground. It falls on some limbs and stays approximately 6 inches off the ground. 4 inches will do. Anything to get it up on the lip of that ramp. But we don't want it down in the dirt because you can't load it that way. One of the big problems about big logs. I see these guys that want to use a log arch to lift the log. All 13,000 pounds on a little old 2-inch log arch. Guys, you're not equipped heavier enough for this kind of work. All I got to say for you. I had to stop and go get my bigger saw with a 36-inch bar to be able to reach through this limb. Sometimes you have to have the right tools for what you're doing. What I'm doing here is I need to remove this limb so that when I cut the main trunk loose that it won't fall down on this limb. I'm going to load the log from the left end of the log there, and I need that portion high, and I need this portion right where I'm at as low as possible so that it'll start up the ramp. So I'm going to use my trailer winch to pull that log out of the way, so when I cut the big one loose, it'll fall down all the way to the ground on that end. I like just a little more cutting it loose. I want to start positioning the log to be loaded on the trailer as it comes loose here. So once it's on the ground, whoops, it didn't clear the top of the trunk, so I'm going to have to go around the other side and use my winch to help try to pull that out of alignment because they didn't separate when I cut it loose. Now I'm trying to roll the log into a position I can get it on my trailer. That means from this view that left side needs to come to me quite a bit to clear the stump. The problem I have is I'm on a slope here. This is on the side of a hill and my trailer's up the hill and I'm trying to pull a 13,000 pound log up the hill even though I'm rolling it. And what happened is it ended up just pulling my trailer backwards down the hill rather than the log up the hill. So we had to come up with a plan B at this point. At this point, I did notice it's 100 degrees out here. I'm tired. I'm not really being observant to where the cameras and what they're doing. Well, my cameras went dead. The batteries went dead on them. So we didn't get any footage of me manipulating this log into position. But what I ended up doing was I couldn't pull the log uphill, so I took the trailer and got it loose and went all the way around the other end of the log. And what you're looking at on the right side of the log, I pulled that down the hill, which spun the left-hand side up the hill to where I could get by that stump of the tree and get my trailer backed up to it and start the loading process. Quite often it's a real problem when you're out trying to work and do all of these functions of getting a big log loaded and tend to cameras too. So this is just one of them times where I didn't pay enough attention to my cameras. So now we'll proceed to loading the log on the trailer. We gotta let the winches cool a little bit. It's really a strain on them and there's a lot of amperage going through them. Let them cool a little bit. Gonna have to pull that end over. It's gonna hang up on the trailer here. People often ask me why I have 3 winches on this trailer. As you can see, I'm using the central biggest winch to pull the log on the trailer. But now it's hung up, which goes back to why I was doing so much positioning with that log before I ever loaded it. But it's hanging on the trailer, so now I'm going to use the winch on the side there that I'm rigging up and a snatch block on the back of the trailer to pull the log sideways and away from the tight side of the trailer to the open side of the trailer so that I can continue to pull it on the trailer. It takes a lot of rigging to do it. It takes a little time to rig up the snatch blocks and the cables and all. But ultimately, that's why I can load these big logs, because when the log weighs around 13,000 pounds, you are not manually going to do nothing with that log. You need equipment like big winches. What I'm looking for now is a certain chain. There's a pile of chains on the front of my trailer for special purposes. I'm looking for the one I use to put snatch blocks, attach them to the side of the trailer. So a little bit of rigging here going on. Have to change my remotes over. I use remotes a lot simply because I can be at the back of the trailer watching what's happening while I'm running the winches and don't have to stand right by the winches. So remotes are really helpful when doing this kind of work. But with 3 winches, often I'll have to trade them over from one winch to the other. What I'm having to do here is the front choker is getting too close to the front of the trailer, so I can't winch it any farther forward, but it's not balanced on the trailer. The log needs to come forward just a little. So I'm throwing just a looped choker around the back of the log, and I'll run it back to the front of the winch, and we'll pull the log just a little farther forward, and using the other winch will also help center it for a trip home. We're back home, and we're going to unload the trailer. On these big logs, I use both 2 winches at once, one on each side, hooked to a snatch block at the rear. And by pulling on it, 2 of them at once, I kind of eject the log off the back. Here in a little bit, as the log gets farther back, I'll put the trailer in neutral, and the log on the ground will end up pushing the trailer out from under it. And sometimes the strap gets so far out of line, so high on the log, I have to loosen it and lower it on the log to finish pushing it back off the trailer. And at some point, I'll just drive the trailer out from under it when I get it far enough off.
That's 60 inches or 5 feet wide that way. Here's where it's split off from the other tree. And this log, where it's split off, is still 3.5 feet. This is the small end of the log. It is 4 foot wide that way, and right at 3 foot wide tall. It's a little oval, 4 feet wide this way, 3 foot tall that way. It weighs right at 13,500 pounds. Big oak log. Let's see if we can't cut this up with some nice slabs, along with a little lumber on the sides.
I need to mention, with this log weighing in at a little over 13,000 pounds, I don't have the equipment to move it around the yard once it hits the ground. So I have chosen a spot under a shade tree that seems appropriate, where we can set up a chainsaw mill and cut it up in place, because once it hits the ground, we're not going to move it. Now, once I start making slabs, this log should make around 11 3-inch thick slabs. Given the length of them and the size of the log, each slab is going to weigh in at around 1,100 pounds when it's green. So even they are large to deal with.
All right, we're going to talk about a couple of different things here. The first of all is, what kind of oak is this? I was told it was a red oak over the phone, but then when I went down there and looked at it, I ended up getting this off of the tree. And it took a little research to figure out what it was, because I wasn't familiar with that kind of oak tree. Post oak, red oak, very common here in Texas. But that region down south of Kilgore, between Kilgore and Palestine, Texas, has a tree called an Overcup Oak. And Overcup Oaks are one member of the white oak family. And as such, they're close grained, but I had got a piece of this log from another tree next to this last year and cut it up, and I was just really pleased with the grain and the texture and the color that the wood had in it. So when I had the opportunity to get this large 5-foot diameter tree that blew over in a storm, I went for it, and not being able to identify it down there, come back and done some research and found it's an Overcup Oak. Grows in that region, and really nice tree. So that's identification of tree. Trees are normally identified by the leaves, and that's what we had to do to find out what kind of oak we had. It's been about 14 days since I went and cut this tree loose from the stump and brought it in here. I meant to get to this project earlier. I just haven't had the time with everything else I got going on. There's been a lot of demands on my time. So what we're here for, though, is to show you why I do this. And what I'm talking about is greenwood stump, been cut 14 days. You'll see all these cracks it's already starting to develop as the end grain bleeds out. Also, it's making this major crack in the core of it get wider. I should have anchor sealed this thing as soon as I got it home, or use a greenwood sealer. Nearly everything I do anymore, I use this Rockler greenwood sealer to seal this up. But I should have done it before these cracks developed. So 14 days of delay has caused a problem. Does it ruin the log? No. What happens is we will seal this log today, and hopefully that'll slow down the dehydration out the end grain. And this should close up a little bit as moisture quits escaping so fast from this surface. What'll end up happening is when I get ready to saw the log up, I'll probably take a chainsaw and move back here 4 inches or so and cut a slice off to get the good wood that hadn't got full of cracks on the end grain. But for right now, our goal is to stop this from cracking any further. So we're going to go at it with this greenwood sealer and seal the whole thing. Now, my normal operation for that is I have this little doggy dish that's been around about 10 years now. But it works well, so all right, brand new bottle of greenwood sealer. Got to break the seal. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour this thing a little more than half full. And use a paintbrush. Paintbrushes can be used over and over. Y'all excuse me, it's 100 degrees out here and I'm sweating all over the place, so y'all forgive me if I have to wipe the sweat off my face enough to see what I'm doing here. The brushes can be reused. They get a little hard when you put them up, but by just putting it in here and start working, real soon, already see that brush is already flexible again. The greenwood sealer reconstitutes and softens it up. Now, what we want is a complete coverage on the end grain of this log. Once we get that here, we will go to the other end. Now this is a big log, so you might think this little 3-inch brush that's a tedious task here, and it is kind of. On something that's big and flat like this, you can make better time if you get like a paint roller and just pour your greenwood sealer into a paint tray and use a roller to roll it on. But since I just have one log to work on, I'm going to go ahead and use my brush today. Now this looks white when it goes on. If you come look at this 24 hours from now, it'll be clear. It dries clear. So get down here and get some more. Alright guys, I realize from the camera standpoint this is not the most exciting video you've ever produced, but this is something you have to do. Now notice that there's some cavities in here, like right there. That's just a rotten place in the wood. It really helps if you take and really try to close those up with, or get them sealed so that they don't bleed out. And then get your other wood around it in good shape. You might notice it kind of opens up some of the pores, so after we finish, we'll be going back over it and just looking for places that it's soaked up or opened up a crack, some way that allow the moisture from this end grain to escape. All right, I'm out of greenwood sealer already, so fill up number 2. I've mentioned this before, but I want to make the point again that even though that's the same tree, all the wood in that same tree is not the same. And what I mean by that is you will find softwood and hardwood in a tree. Now I'm not talking about the core versus the new wood. I'm talking about in any one place. Limbs can cause that, or sometimes just the tree decides to put more sap in an area. And I notice it when we seal them, how much some areas will just soak this sealer up and it kind of almost disappears. It soaks it up like a dry sponge. In some areas it just stands on thing. And they can be a part of the same wood. It just has to do with the way trees grow. And so that's why we come back, we let this set 2 or 3 days, and you come back and you reseal it, and all you really concentrate is at the areas that soaked up the sealer, the greenwood sealer. And that you will find there will be several of them in any log or tree. We notice it mostly when we cut turning blank rounds out of these trees, that one side of the round will soak it up and the other one won't. And they're out of the same tree and they're very close together, but it doesn't matter. It's just the difference in the growth of the tree. Last night my friend Rick come over, and he works at an automotive supply store. If any of you had looked back at my videos to where I modified my logging trailer here, a video come out about 3 months ago. He was largely responsible for helping me figure out
the batteries I needed in those winches and the battery cables to carry the amperage to load these logs. Remember this log I had mentioned earlier? This log weighs in, it's 5 foot diameter, but weighs in around 13,500 pounds. So a winch to pull that on the trailer takes a lot of amperage and a lot of battery. And Richard he wanted to come see the log. This is the first large log I've loaded since I modified that trailer. And I've loaded other logs, but they weren't near this large. So he wanted to just come see this thing. So we had an interesting discussion on it. And I thanked him for his advice, which was really helpful on modifying my trailer so my winches would load something like this. One of the tests we're going to have this fall, the way I'm sealing it now, and we're in the middle of June, and it's too hot to cut up slabs right now, and I've got other things going. So about October, November, we will get the chainsaw mill out and cut this. The problem is it's 5 foot wide. Well, my chainsaw will cut 60 inches gap, so it's going to be a challenge to get these middle cuts cut with that chainsaw mill, and it's the largest one that anybody makes. May have to do some engineering and figure out something unique for just to be able to cut this log up. We'll see. All right, I'm going over areas that look like it's soaking it up, or maybe didn't get filled enough. It's just a touch-up coat. And we're gonna keep looking at it. And we're gonna call that end done. And it's all sealed up. Now we're gonna go the other end and do the same thing with it. Yeah, this stuff's messy. The other end of the log was 5 foot diameter. This end of the log is 4 foot wide, about 3 foot tall. But basically it's gotta be sealed. The end grain is cracking. I see more end grain cracking on the other end, but this is still cracking, so we're gonna seal it up using basically the same method we just used a while ago. We're just gonna get after it and do some painting. All right, there we go. We've anchor sealed the other end. We will come out in 3 or 4 days and check this again and probably do a little touch up on areas that look like they're still dry. We want to stop the cracking out of the end grain, so we're going to keep an eye on this from now on. Cleaning up the brush. Be good to use one more time when we get ready. Whew. And there we go. What could be more fun than crawling around on the top of Grandpa's big log? Kids always find a way to have fun with whatever's going on.